Hello everybody. Sorry for the slight delay here. You know how it sometimes goes. Sometimes when you're like, killing time and all that, you sometimes all of a sudden it's it's you've got 20 minutes to go before the start of a show, and then you look up and realize, oh, we're on in 5 minutes, or we're on in like 1 minute. Oops. Or something like that. That's how things go in life, though. Oh yeah. Happy Tuesday to everybody. So today, of course, I hope everybody had a good. For those who celebrated, hope everybody had a good holiday yesterday. The Labor Day. Sure, there are a number of you may have had your barbecues as it were. Um, if you're in a place that celebrates that. Um, let's see. Hail High Prophet Xenu and Hail Warrior Princess Xena. All right, hey JR. All right, so with all that, we'll go over, and if you haven't already, if you can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people here. That would really help. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your attention, feel free to comment and/or ask questions. So with that, since we do have a person here, we might as well get going here. So tonight, of course, I'm going to do a couple articles here. Both of them revolving around One Piece. Of course, as everybody knows, One Piece debuted last Thursday, the 31st. And so there were a number of articles that led up into it. Some impressions of the showrunners, and of course, even after it premiered, it's been even after it premiered, it's been getting there's been some things in the news on it. So where the audience has been real high on it, but critics and a lot of the journalists, as some people like to call them, have not been. So we'll go over a couple. We'll have the rest of the wrap of this day in each history, and then we'll have everything up here. So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Um, go ahead and get into the articles here. Like a jagged little pill. Yeah, for whatever reason, I got that song in my head now. That Alanis Morissette song. Anyways, and thank you for the like and the share. See if we can get some more friendly people in here. Let's see now. So let's get in. So the first of two articles we're gonna do on this, and they're talking about, of course, the live action adaptation of One Piece. Which again, from the looks of it, from everything we've been hearing, sounds like the audiences, the fans have been real happy with it thus far. As the showrunners have come out on several occasions and talked about how they learned their lesson from the Cowboy Bebop fiasco. So, anyway, so let's get into this. Netflix's live-action One Piece showrunner says the most important lesson he learned from series creator Eiichiro Oda was, quote, that getting too far away from the source material was not going to be good in any way, unquote. Article by Spencer Reculli, published back on August 29th, which was a week ago, 2 days before the actual premiere of it. Manga and television, the sections have been. So, in continuing what appears to be a running trend amongst those who have worked on the show, Netflix's live-action One Piece showrunner, Steven Maeda, has revealed that thanks to working alongside the series' original creator, Eiichiro Oda, in developing the series, he was able to understand, quote, that getting too far away from the source material was not going to be good in any way, unquote. Maeda reflected on his time working alongside the legendary mangaka while giving an interview, which since has been either deleted or hidden to Screen Rant's Grant Hammond's. Okay. Oh, actually, we may have already read this one. Okay. Uh, actually, we haven't read this particular article. We've read a similar article, though. Anyways, either deleted or hidden to Screen Rant's Grant Hammonds in promotion of the live action adaptation upcoming premiere. In reference to Maeda and his co showrunner Matt Owen's previous revelation that, quote, anything new to the series had to be discussed very um, intensively with Oda, the unknown contributor first broached the topic of the former's collaboration with the series creator by asking whether or not, quote, there is something that Oda sensei initially was not happy about, but you fought for it because you believed it was good and the show needed it. And ultimately, you were able to persuade him. In turn, Maeda revealed, quote, there were a couple of things that took some persuading. And if there was something that Oda-san was really, really unhappy with, we found a way to change it. But there were some things that we tried and got into the show that initially he was a little gun shy about, unquote. But one of those was, in brackets, that we've structurally moved a couple of things up that don't happen until much later chapters, unquote. The showrunner went on to explain, quote, and one of them, for example, was bringing up Garp as a more present character in the first 8 episodes, bringing in Kobe, bringing Helmepo, and having the Marine pursuit be present and on the Straw Hat's tail almost from the get-go from episode 2. Whereas that came a little later. That came a little further in the anime. What I can tell you, because of course I've been watching the anime for the last few months here. The Navy didn't really start pursuing the Straw Hats until much later than they're probably doing in the live action series. Let's see. As we continue on here. Let's see. It was a big change, and I thought it was something that we really needed in order to keep the stakes up and let it feel like it wasn't just a fun adventure where we were meeting different antagonists and different villains and pirates, but there was an actual kind of organized presence and fearsome presence that was behind Luffy and pursuing. That was definitely a big challenge, unquote. Now, mind you, what you also have to remember and understand too here is that in the animes, and in a lot of like Shonen Jump animes, right? Disney animes, a lot of these animes, some of the more popular ones like One Piece, like Dragon Ball, like Bleach. At times, they have a way of stretching certain parts out, like the fight scenes in particular, to make it more dramatic. But when you're doing a TV series, you can't spend 2 or 3 weeks on one fight, right? Or you can't spend 2 or 3 weeks on just pushing one aspect of a story, right? On TV, you got to speed things up a little bit. Even in serials, I sometimes try that. But quote, and another one was pulling up Arlong because Arlong doesn't really come until Darlong Park chapters, unquote, he continued. Quote, but one of the things that we were able to convince Oda-san, brackets to do, was pulling all Arlong up, introducing him early, taking him to Bharati, and kind of swapping him with the Don Krieg storyline in a way to make Arlong our big bad of the first season, which I think worked very well. Yeah, so doing that, because Don Krieg, his arc was maybe 2 or 3 episodes. The Arlong Park arc was quite a bit longer. So bringing him as your big baddie for the first season does sound like a pretty interesting idea there. Hail Mike and the Jet. Hey, Shadowhawk, thanks for dropping in. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people here, that'd be great. Anyways, as we continue on here with the article. Conversely, pressed by Hermans, if he could, quote, share at least one idea that Oda absolutely shut down, but you wish made it into the show, unquote, a refreshingly humble Maeda recalled, quote, there were definitely some things that we couldn't do, and we were okay with most of those things, unquote. Yeah, I know that one of the things that came up in Yellow Flash of the video today, I guess since since the show premiered, a lot of the critics have been pushing, One Piece, saying, well, it won't be successful unless you do this, that, and the next thing. You instead of just being instead of just respecting the source material, you got to make Luffy gay, you got to make him asexual and all that. And the showrunners have said, no, we're gonna follow what Oda says. And I know Yellow Flash, when he was talking about that earlier, he was saying that if Oda did leave, then the show would probably take a serious dive, which I would agree with. Quote, for example, one of the big mandates was no changing the backstory of how someone got a devil fruit and the powers of the devil fruit, unquote. He once again reiterated, as he had first divulged in the series' official press materials, quote, we don't want to introduce new devil fruits. We don't want to change things that are canon. We were always talking about canon and about how to do fan service. Definitely the devil fruit stuff, definitely keeping backstories as pure as possible, unquote. In other words, the whole idea of making Luffy gay is not going to happen. Simple as that. Or asexual. Quote, and I would say it was really a process because we did several different versions of the story before we started writing it, unquote. The showrunner further detailed. Quote, certainly before we started shooting, some of which were a little further away from the manga, some of which were much closer. We ended up, I think, doing the right version of the show, which was a really nice high budget version that was very faithful to the manga without being a one-to-one copy. Because if you're doing a one-to-one copy, then what's the point? Let's see. Taking note of the fact that he, quote, must have had a fair amount of interaction with Oda, unquote, Hermans then asked Maeda if he could share, quote, the most important thing that you learned from him during this project, unquote. To which the showrunner replied, quote, I would say just trying to figure out the amount of fealty and loyalty that had to be given to the manga, unquote. Quote, and look, sometimes when something is adapted, it's very, very faithful, unquote, he told Screen Rant. Quote, and sometimes it's a radical difference where it's just you take the idea and you run with it in a completely different direction. Both types of shows can be successful. With this one, it was clear, as we were talking about it, that getting too far away from the source material was not going to be good in any way, unquote. When Emily Rudd as Nami in season 1 of One Piece. Quote, sure, there were wonderful stories that could be told that are not as close to the manga, unquote, Maeda elaborated. Quote, but I think that rightfully so, the fan base would not have accepted those shows because One Piece is such a beloved source of material. And so I really wanted to, after a lot of trial and error, honor what Oda-san wanted to do, which was to have a version of the show that we felt really good about and that he felt really good about, unquote. Yeah, because basically, as we've talked about in the past, when you're not faithful to the source material, fans will hate it. We saw that with Cowboy Bebop when they did live action. They said, "No, we're gonna just ignore the source material. Yeah, the creator's here, but he's not, but we're not really gonna listen to him." And look what happened, right? That was the Cowboy Bebop, but they're doing the exact opposite here with One Piece with what they did with Cowboy Bebop. So, quote, and so it was then a matter of time of lining those things up and kind of toggling them a little left and a little right and just making sure that even if there's something new in the show, it feels genuine. He added, quote, pray to God the show feels like that because that was the intent, unquote. In showing further gratitude to Oda for being allowed the rare chance to adapt one of the world's most popular anime series, when later pressed by Hermans if he had a, quote, funny Oda story, unquote, he could share from their time together, Maeda admitted that he was too intimidated by the mangaka's presence to feel anything but awe towards their interactions. Yeah, I mean, okay, so you're getting to interact with this individual, with this awe-inspiring individual. Yeah, you take it serious, right? Unless they kind of relax the situation. It's called showing respect, people. Quote, you know what? He's a really interesting man, unquote, he recalled. Quote, very challenging, very opinionated, and rightfully so. He's a genius. And he created a wonderful, wonderful world. I've always said this. This is his sandbox. And we just get to play in it. And it's a privilege to do so. That's the kind of attitude more Hollywood people should have when adapting mangas. That right there, Mr. Maeda, you are a great man for showing that level of humility and respect. Well, hey Rick, hope you're doing well, man. Hope you've been getting more rest the last couple of days. Everything's been going down, and I hope you guys enjoy the show here. We're continuing on here with this article. Let's see. Quote, I don't know that there's a funny story as much as it was always daunting to sit with him or to talk with him on Zoom because he is the creator of the world, unquote. The showrunner ultimately concluded his thoughts on the topic. Quote, and so it definitely felt like there was a huge responsibility that was being handed over, and I very much wanted to honor that responsibility at at the same time as telling a great season of television. All 8 episodes of Netflix's live action One Piece are currently tracking to make landfall on August 31st. So they just put the whole season out in one blast on Thursday. So if you guys want to go watch it, and go ahead. So that's it. Finish of that article. Now we'll probably, and the only other article I was going to do tonight, of course, was another another Netflix One Piece article. Well, depending on time, I might even add an article. So there was that. So yeah. So the next one we're going to do is right here.
Did you think the
All right, so here's another article, probably from the same interview that we were just talking about. So Netflix's live-action One Piece showrunner says he wanted to adapt Eiichiro Oda's manga because it tells a quote simple and yet so profound unquote story, a quote about a boy who's following his dreams. So this might be just another part of the interview between Maeda and Herman's here. So I'm guessing. Article by Spencer McCooley, published a week ago, August 29th. So, Rick Shadow. And thank you guys for the likes and shares. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to get involved. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. And with that, anyways, let's get to this article. In stark contrast to the usual cynicism, fan disdain, and self-aggrandizing that has fueled nearly every live-action Hollywood anime adaptation in recent years, Netflix's One Piece showrunner, Steven Maeda, has revealed that the, quote, simple and elemental, unquote, nature of Luffy's journey was what inspired him to take a live-action crack at Eiichiro Oda's seminal work. All right. Maeda, whose previous credits include stints as a writer for Lost, Lost second season, and the showrunner for the sci-fi series Helix, spoke to his love of the One Piece manga's optimistic story while giving a since-deleted or hidden interview to Screen Rant ahead of Netflix's adaptation's upcoming premiere. I wonder why it would have been hidden wonder why it would have been hidden or deleted though. I wonder if maybe Screen Rant is one of those entities that would have wanted One Piece to go full on SJW. You have to kind of wonder that. Anyways, asked by an credited Screen Rant reporter to recall his, quote, first meeting with One Piece, unquote. The showrunner asserted, quote, my first meeting, I was approached by, in bracket, production studio, Tomorrow Studios, because they had acquired the rights to the story and the underlying IP, and they were looking for someone to write a pilot script for them to do a rewrite to run the show. And so I had a meeting with them and hit it off and loved the material, unquote, he explained. Quote, and that was the beginning. That was a little over 4 years ago. That was the first time I was involved, unquote. Quote, I was a fan before, but I hadn't really dived in deep, unquote. He added, quote, I had read a couple of chapters early, but I really didn't understand the true breadth and scope of the world. And so I very quickly got up to speed with the first 100 chapters. And then was so taken, I just said, if there's a way to be part of this, I've got to do it. And then, and then I kept reading. It's like now I'm caught up. I think chapter 1089, unquote. And there's the, of course, pictorial we talked about before, all the female characters. Taking note of the fervor with which Maeda consumed Oda's manga, the Screen Rant contributor then inquired with the showrunner as to what it was, quote, that drew you to the story, unquote, and whether or not there was something about it that, quote, particularly resonates with you, unquote, to which his guest replied, quote, I thought it was a wonderful combination, a very unique world, which you don't see that often nowadays in big fantasy, intellectual property, in comics and manga, unquote. Uh, quote, they're they're they they're there, but they're hard to come by, especially the really good ones, unquote. Maeda then clarified, quote, and so I was really taken with Oda-san's world, and then the storytelling was so kind of simple and elemental, about a boy who's following his dreams and who inspires other people to follow their dreams too. Now, I've seen a few shonen anime before that always seems to be a common thread in a lot of them. You got that one character, one underdog character that always turns out to be the inspiration for many people. You know, you got Luffy in One Piece, you got Naruto in Naruto, you've got Yusuke Urameshi in Yu Hakusho. Quote, I've always said that Luffy's superpower is that he gets other people to remember their dreams and to start following them again, unquote. He ultimately opined on the topic, quote, even more so than the stretchy power that is his superpower. And it was such it's funny because, you know, you think of characters like Luffy, like, you know, Naruto, like Yusuke Urameshi, even to a lesser extent, maybe even Goku, right? These characters are great fighters, they're great action guys, but there's something about their very nature, whether it's the naivete, the innocence that's within them, you know, it's one of those things that draws people in, right? Draws, you know, when you see somebody like Luffy, like Goku, like Naruto, like Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho, you see these characters and you see them overcome and overcome and overcome, you want to rally behind them. It's like, yes, yes, kick the bad guy's butt, right? And sometimes that aspect can be even cooler than the actual powers or superpowers themselves, right? That aspect that really um, can draw people in, as it were. Let's see. Let's see. And it was such an important story, I thought, and such that the combination of action and the world building and the emotion was amazing. Unquote. But there's a scene of him stretching his face. Inaki Godoy playing Luffy here. To this end, asked by Screen Rant's contributor at the end of their time together whether he had any words of encouragement for the audiences whose first exposure to the franchise will be Netflix's live action series, Maeda would reiterate his love for Oda's original vision and declare, quote, I would say to jump into it with no expectations, to watch the show for what it is, and just let the world come to you, unquote. Quote, because it is so unique and so different from most of the other big epic fantasy shows out there, I think you just have to accept it. He told the outlet. I would tell people to enjoy the tone of the show because the show is fun and sometimes a little bit goofy and irreverent, but also very emotional and very heartfelt. And at the core of it is a story about following your dreams, which is something that we all struggle with. And I have always said, even 4 years ago, that this was a wonderful story for the times we're in, because it's about hope and optimism and following dreams, which is something that is in scarce supply these days. Unquote. And I'd have to agree with that. A lot of people with their anime and comic adaptation are more concerned about pushing agendas than they are than telling the story, and that's what's driving a lot of people away from those adaptations. But Maeda, I applaud him for listening to Oda. I applaud him for keeping the fans, you know, keeping the fans' wishes in his thoughts, and for not kowtowing to a bunch of these journalists who are saying, no, you should make this character gay, or you should set up this, you should ship this, you ship that. Um, as noted above, Maeda's outlook towards One Piece is both strongly counter and a welcome change to Hollywood's usual approach to adapting not just anime, but works of any given medium, whether it be comic books, novels, or video games. Which is true. Whether it be Cowboy Bebop or Castlevania, Death Note or Doctor Strange, most Western creatives seek to use such properties as nothing more than a vehicle for their own egos, which is true. And we've seen that quite a bit the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? Disregarding canon, lore, and even the very world of respective creators in order to, in smaller quotes, put their own stamp on it, unsmaller quote, and make a name for themselves. Yes, I mean, another example, of course, is Velma, right? Mindy Kaling, another example of that. You know, um, the Easter Bunny chocolate Velma. uh, Not only that, but more often than not, these Hollywood creators are also hoping to subvert and change a given IP as nothing more than, in small quotes, revenge against its fans, often treating their projects as little more than a multi-million dollar star-studded therapy sessions and stuffing them full of cheap insults and bizarre moments of shoplifting their own pet issues, or spotlighting their own pet issues. Hmm. You guys are saying anything more yet? Nope, I guess not. And we're up to 36 minutes here, so we'll probably, after this, just start winding things down then. Um, However, it seems Maeda disagrees with the idea that taking a property and wiping one's backside with it. I like how Spencer put that, wiping one. That's exactly what these people have been doing with it, with these properties prior to this. Exactly. Particularly by quote reimagining, in small quotes, reimagining hopeful and optimistic characters in an unnecessarily grim, dark manner is a winning strategy. Um, Taking his words at face value, the showrunner will apparently be pushing back against Hollywood's exhausting obsession with nihilism, um, by genuinely and unironically presenting a story whose protagonist faces each and every situation with hope instead of one who exists solely as a megaphone for a liberal arts major's deconstruction of a heroic ideal. Look at that. Sorry, I'm a goner. Look at that. Look at that. Look at Luffy right there with his big grin. Don't talk crazy. No, don't talk crazy. Crack, crack. He laughs. He laughs. Netflix's live action One Piece sets out to find Goldie Roger's treasure on August 31st. Alrighty then. So, I said, as I have said, that'll be the last article for tonight. We'll start to kind of wind down a bit because, again, I've been trying to keep things within a certain hour since we ran over by an hour on last Friday. We're gonna try to keep them until we get close to a certain hour number. You know, be 45 to 50 minutes. So, anyways, with all that, let's get to the wrestling wrap up. Just a few little things here and there from like just to go over from last night's Raw and tomorrow night's AW. Plus, talking a little bit about CM Punk's situation as well. So on last night's Raw, of course, a few things were going on. So first had in a tornado tag match, the Viking Raiders, Eric and Ivar, defeating Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle. Which I guess during there's still some work where they're still dropping hints of a potential McIntyre heel turn, as when Pierce introduced that Jey Uso was on Raw now. McIntyre was one of those who was not welcoming Jay to the Raw brand, as it were. Um, so, um, so they're continuing to work that over. Ricochet defeated Shinsuke Nakamura by DQ. Shayna Baszler defeated Zoe Stark by referee's decision, and from the apparently, according to some of the commentators I was watching earlier on this, based on the interaction that the two of them had after their match, And of course, this is one of two women's matches that featured some of the undercard talent, as it were, of the women's division. Potentially, it looks like they might be considering putting Baszler and Starks together as a tag team. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Raquel Rodriguez defeated Chelsea Green. Now, one of the things they're hoping too with bringing in, so they had two women's matches back to back here, and possible. One of the things I've heard that possibly by putting Baszler and Starks together, they're hoping to ignite the women's tag division a little bit more, as it's been kind of going down a bit of late. JD McDonough defeated Sami Zayn, and in the main event of the night, Gunther retained the Intercontinental title over Chad Gable. As they're looking for Gunther to break Hong Kong Man's all-time record of over 400 days. I think it's like 478 days as Intercontinental Champion. They're really trying to book Gunther to have a very lengthy reign like that. That's what it here. So that's all from that perspective. Now AEW, not as much as we talked about yesterday, of course. CM Punk was fired was basically terminated from AEW for the incident he had with Jack Perry at All In. And as more and more come out, now there's been some talk that he's desperately trying to get WWE to bring him back. Albeit the likelihood of that really happening, I don't really see as much because, of course, there's bad blood. I mean, anywhere it seems like CM Punk goes, bad blood seems to follow. Bad blood seems to follow wherever CM Punk goes. So that seems to be that does seem to be the case. With that being said, of course, AEW tomorrow night does have its Dynamite, its episode, the 205th episode of Dynamite, coming from the Indiana Farmers Coliseum in Indianapolis. And the one match that is signed thus far is Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara taking on Aussie Open. Aussie Open coming off of their loss a couple weeks ago to Better Than You, Baby, dropping the Ring of Honor tag team titles, and then not being able to succeed in getting a shot at the All Elite World Tag Team titles. So that's all I got for the wrestling wrap up. So now what we'll do today is Tuesday, September the 5th, 2023. So let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! And we have things in all four sections tonight, 63, 33, and 2018. So with that, here we go. First off, we're going to head back 90 years ago today. As on this date, 90 years ago today, Columbia Pictures' Out of the Ether premiered in movie theaters on this date back in 1933, 90 years ago today. It was an animated short featuring Crazy Cat, who was a popular character at the time. Was produced by the Charles Mint Studio. So on this date, 90 years ago today, the Crazy Cat feature animated short Out of the Ether by Columbia Pictures was released in movie theaters. So with that, moving on to the next piece in Nietzsche history. On this date in 1963, 60 years ago today, up in Portland, Oregon. King Curtis Ayakea, who some of you might remember, from his time in the WWF, and later, of course, in WCW, as kind of the guy who Kevin Sullivan would answer to when he was a Taskmaster. King Curtis Ayakea defeated Tony Bourne for the NWA Pacific Northwest heavyweight title. So on this date, 60 years ago today, King Curtis Ayakea defeated Tony Bourne for the NWA Pacific Northwest heavyweight title. Now, moving ahead to 2018, on this date in 2018, the fifth and final issue of Ant-Man and Wasp went on sale from Marvel Comics on this date back 5 years ago today, in 2018. It sold for $3.99. It's 28 pages. There was no title of the story. It was written by Mark Waid, art by Javier Garron, Joe Caramagna did the lettering, and then Israel Silva did the coloring. So the fifth and final issue of Ant-Man and the Wasp was released to newsstands, went on sale in newsstands on this date 5 years ago today, back in 2018. And 2018 is just so nice that we're gonna hit it twice. As also on this date in 2018, also on this date in 2018, JC Staff's Backstreet Girls Goku Dolls. Backstreet Girls Goku Dolls. Completed its run on Japanese TV on this date back in 2018, so 5 years ago today. JC Staff's Backstreet Girls Goku Dolls completed its run on Japanese TV, or on Netflix rather, on this date back in 2018. So there you go, guys. That's all we have for you tonight. And thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We are going to try to make them a little quicker here for a while. But I'll be back here tomorrow night with more niche news. Also, don't forget this Friday, I'll have Tim Olson with me, as he'll be my co-host. We'll be going over comics that went on sale in December 1939 from the company that we now know of today as Archie. We'll be looking over I believe it's the third or fourth issue of Blue Ribbon Comics. I hope you guys will be back here on Friday. You guys will be back here tomorrow as well. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.